Hey everybody, today I'm joined by Harlen, who's earned over $500,000 on Fiverr, as well as tens of thousands of dollars on Upwork. And so today we're going to talk about his experience on both platforms. So Harlen, thanks so much for being here.
Awesome, Nico. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So the first question is pretty simple. It's just who are you and what services do you offer?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Harlan. Like you mentioned, I've been on Fiverr for past couple of years, and had a brief 8 to 9 month stint on Upwork before I ultimately got kicked off the platform, which I'm sure you've seen in the last couple months. Uh, but the services I offer all revolve around email marketing, so some prospecting work as well as some direct to consumer campaign management, design development work.
Awesome. Cool. And how did you first get started using Fiverr?
Yeah, I got started probably back in 2018 is when I first, made my account and posted my first gig. I was working for my neighbor who ran a tattoo supply company. And I was kind of just like sitting on the computer, just like pushing a bunch of buttons, basically. He was like, figure out a way to get me sales. And so I ultimately fell into like the lead gen space, outbound space, and started basically prospecting for him. Um, and that ultimately turned into, me figuring out, if I could do this for a tattoo supply company, I could probably do this for a bunch of other companies. And so I threw up a Fiverr gig, um, and kind of left it alone for a couple of years. And then, right around COVID, I was just pretty much out of boredom, revisited it, and like spruced up the gig a little bit. And then all of a sudden, a couple messages started coming in, a couple sales. And I basically just didn't think anything of it, just answered the messages as they came in, filled the orders, and then ultimately it kind of started ramping up over the course of 6 to 8 months. Um, and I was like, okay, let me take this a little bit more seriously. Kind of optimize the actual delivery of the service, the type of how I communicate, the gig, make sure it's optimized for search. I got some help from Fiverr themselves, actually had a couple consults with them. They kind of showed me best practices. And then from there, I kind of almost doubled. And then, that was back in 2021, 2022, and it's been going pretty strong since then.
Awesome. Right on. And you mentioned you kind of just like threw something up there on Fiverr when you first started. Were you aware of Upwork when you first started out? And like, if so, what made you choose Fiverr over Upwork?
Yeah, I was aware of Upwork. I'm pretty sure in like 2016, I made an account and did a couple of like $5 services on Upwork. I think I like left an Amazon review, which is definitely against Amazon's terms of service, but whatever. So I knew about it and I tried it. I think what drew me to Fiverr was the fact that, I could just put up a service out there, um, and it'll just stick and people can come to me versus, Upwork. I would have had to, grind
Yeah.
out proposals for at least a couple of months, which as you know, costs both time and money, whereas Fiverr is kind of much lower barrier to entry. You just throw up a service and hope it hits, basically.
Yeah. Cool. Well, like we kind of covered in the intro, you're obviously super successful on Fiverr. So I was kind of curious, like, what are some of the things that you do differently than most people that allow you to see so much success?
Yeah, it's a good question. I hate kind of speaking for others because I don't know a ton about what the rest of the field does. But I do kind of track my specific category and look at their service offering, their pricing, their average response times, and try to kind of stay on top of it. I would say probably the main differentiator is communication. Uh, my response time is basically a couple minutes all hours of the day, with the exception of when, I'm sleeping. And basically as soon as someone sends me a message, they get an instant, relevant, non-robotic response, addressing their questions and their pain points and basically strategizing on how I can best help them. And then from there, you close the deal, right? And then communication with throughout the actual order and fulfillment is equally as important. So daily updates, quick deliveries, um, follow up. So a couple days after the order's done, I'm checking in on how everything's going, all that stuff. I don't think most people probably do that to the standard that I've set. And I really do think that that's more important than the actual service you're offering. Just keeping them confident and keeping them in, you know, feeling good about the stuff you're working on, even if the service itself isn't that great, as long as they feel good about it. Obviously you want to have a great service, but as long as they feel good about it and they're in touch and they feel like they can come back to you with revision requests and stuff without, feel like they're overstepping and stuff like that. That's super important. And, I don't think most people are doing that to the same degree.
Yeah, 100%. That's such a common trait between pretty much all the high performers that I talk to, whether it's Upwork, Fiverr, other freelance platforms. Like providing a high quality service and just making sure your customers are happy is a massive deal breaker. Because if you're able to get a bunch of 5-star reviews, it's gonna, signal to the platforms to keep pushing your profiles out. And then every time a client checks at your reviews, you're gonna get more messages, and just it's a complete upward spiral versus the other end of things. If you don't do a good job, if you're not checking in with these clients after you've done the service, you're probably going to get some bad reviews. And then after that, it becomes super tough to get back into things and get, more clients after that. So that's awesome. And
Yeah.
it kind of leads me to my next question, which is like, you obviously had a ton of success with Fiverr using those strategies. So what ultimately, made you decide to get on Upwork?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, I've had a couple years on Fiverr, relatively, I was still growing to a degree. I think, maybe like 20% year over year, which was good. But I think I was wanting a little bit more in terms of diversifying income streams and kind of just growing faster. And I didn't think that, Fiverr was going to be, if I doubled down on Fiverr, um, you know, maybe like putting all that time back into my Fiverr profile would not lead to like the same return as putting it into a new venture like Upwork. And I still think that's true. Another reason is, I ended up having making some hires to help out with fulfillment, which has saved me a ton of time. And so I actually had the time and availability to work on something else, which wasn't the case, a year before I started Upwork.
Yeah.
So that was definitely a big win for me. It freed up a lot of my day for me to work on new stuff.
Awesome. Right on. And you obviously had a bunch of success, like a lot quicker than most people on Upwork. I see most people struggling for quite a while to get their first clients because they just don't know what they're doing, or whatever else, whatever other reasons they have. And obviously you saw a lot of success pretty quickly. And so I was curious, like, what do you think led to the speed of success for you?
Yeah, I think I was, you know, really serious about it. When I kind of made a decision to kind of pursue Upwork, and because of that, I kind of systemized a lot of the process and basically treated it like a full-time job, or like if I were just starting a new job, I would give it 100% dedication, at least for the first couple of months. And so that's what I did. I had submitting 10, 15 proposals a day, doing tons of volume, making my profile as optimized as I could, same standards of communication with Fiverr. Everyone was getting, instant responses. My rates were pretty favorable to start out, just so I can, work up some reviews and establish my profile. And then I kind of raised them as I continued to stack up, 15, 20 reviews and projects. Um, I don't think that it was that like hard, honestly, in terms of like it's hard work, but it's not like, you need some crazy specialized skill set, especially with Upwork because it's such like a kind of like grindy platform. Like you just have to be on it all day, submitting proposals basically and communicating with prospects. And so there's really nothing special about what I was doing to grow quick on there. It was more that I was just on the platform trying
Yeah.
to grow. Uh, so as long as you have a pretty decent service, obviously it helped that I had, a track record of, freelance success that I could easily point to, case studies, I wasn't exactly starting from zero. But, if you say come from a job or, have a couple of, external clients, it's pretty easy to kind of leverage that work as, case studies and experience, and then, um, win jobs from day one, or, at least first couple of weeks.
Yeah. Awesome. And you mentioned there, like, one of the things that you took that you transferred skill sets from Fiverr to Upwork is just like being on the platform all day, immediate response time, just, really high quality work and checking in with those clients. Do you think there were other principles or skill sets that you used on Fiverr that also helped you with Upwork?
I mean, I was very familiar with rankings, so profile optimization, gig rank in the case of Fiverr, profile rank in the case of Upwork. So, I knew to spend a lot of time, making sure keywords were stuffed and profile was complete, because I had insight into, how Fiverr ranks gigs, and I kind of just assumed that Upwork was pretty similar. And so I spent a lot of time on that. Um, Ultimately, what that comes down to is just like, if you see an empty part of your profile, make sure it's filled up. So like if Upwork's offering a feature, they're not doing it out of the kindness of their heart. They want that information, and they want it filled out. So it doesn't make sense to leave it empty. Um, and so I think that was helpful. I was super cognizant of that. And then I basically, in terms of the actual like operations, I handle them almost exactly the same. Um, and so obviously, I had a ton of experience with it, but that was probably it.
Awesome.
They are similar platforms. So
Yeah. Yeah, definitely similar. It's kind of leads me to my next question, which is like the way I compare the two, like in my head, is obviously you have Upwork, which allows you to control the input. The negative to that is that you have to be the one submitting proposals, so it does take time and effort. But to some extent, you can control the input, which does give you control over the output. And like Fiverr, obviously you have the paid ads element, but you don't have like those manual inputs that you're doing to control the output. So I was kind of curious, like, to hear your thoughts on that, but also just to get your kind of general comparison after using both platforms.
yeah, I mean, they both have their positives and negatives. Obviously, it's great to be able to, just get inbound messages and leads all day. And I would definitely take that over having to, work for the leads and prospect them all day. But also you're not really in control of your fate, right? So, you know, you slide in the ranks for whatever reason, and all of a sudden those messages you were getting every day start to go away, um, which is a little bit nerve-wracking. Whereas on Upwork, yes, obviously you have your profile ranks and you get some DMs, but I mean, you can always just keep submitting proposals no matter what your stance on the platform is, right? So that is a little bit more of a feeling of security, whereas Fiverr, you're kind of like on edge a little bit more, very cognizant of that, success score, which now both Fiverr and Upwork have. And you want to make sure you're staying at the top of the gig rankings, so you continue getting those inbound leads.
Awesome.
And then, yeah, in terms of general comparisons, I think, obviously the bigger one is Fiverr is very much, gig based, project based, whereas Upwork is more of like a general hire, right? So you hire a marketer and you have them work on a bunch of various tasks. Whereas on Fiverr, they're probably fixing some very specific thing within a document or setting up a couple of ads. So there's a lot more nuance in the type of work on Upwork, from client to client, whereas Fiverr, you're delivering a very similar service, because you dictate what that service is,
Yep.
like to a T. Uh, the pros being that you can systemize it super well and crank through them really easily. The cons being, there's not a ton of flexibility. So if someone's looking for a slightly different service, they might not click on you because, it doesn't say that in the gig title. Um, and then on Upwork, pros, you can kind of manipulate your services to fit the client's needs. And there's a lot more potential of, upsell and longer term projects because, it's way easier to wear like or have like be like a Swiss Army knife and, provide a couple of different services within your niche.
Awesome. Cool. Well, just last question here. Where can people find you? Like, is Twitter the best spot? Is there somewhere else that people can find you?
Yeah, Twitter's the best spot right now. At the Fiverr guy. You know, I'm still tweeting on there every couple of days whenever I get a random thought. And who knows, maybe you'll see me on YouTube soon after seeing all your stuff. I'm getting pretty inspired.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I hope to see you on YouTube. And yeah, guys, definitely go check out him at the Fiverr guy. I'll link his Twitter profile in the description so you can go check that out. Harlan, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Nico. Always a pleasure.